where you would actually say that store the metadata location. Okay, so the reason
Uh-huh.
for this is to make the query run faster. Okay,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So one type of index would be the actual keys, say the ones that you have mentioned, say like a
Uh-huh.
primary key. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so other types of indexes would be you have unique indexes, you have composite indexes where you actually join more than one columns. Okay,
Mhm.
so I mean, I'll give you an example. So if you have a student database and if you actually want to query students based on their city and state. Okay, just an example,
Mhm.
both on city and state.
Mhm.
At that point, what you'll do is you'll actually do a like a multi-column index, okay, or a composite
Uh-huh.
index on city and state. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so when somebody asks for Houston, Texas, that would already be indexed. Okay,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So I mean, the only reason why indexes have to be used is indexes would be stored in like a privileged location. Probably that's how I'll put it. Okay, when compared
Uh,
to other data. Okay, other data can be
okay.
placed anywhere on the disk, but indexes would only be put in a privileged location. So so the database server would understand that if I'm actually looking for a certain what is it? If I'm looking for a certain item, I'll first look at the index, and if it's in the index, if it's available in the index, I'll actually get it from the data. If not, I'll actually look for it on the disk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And let me see. Look at the um. What are the crude things? Crude.
Uh, what things? I'm sorry.
Let me see the table of our uh, crude operations.
Okay, so let me. So are you looking at? Oh, CURD.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Crud.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So CRUD is create, read, update, and delete. Okay.
Is the DDL? I thought it was something else.
Uh, so I mean, if you just said DDL, DDL
Uh-huh.
is data definition language. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So RU and D. Okay.
Uh-huh.
They come under DML. Okay. Data manipulation.
The create is only DDL.
Not just create, but you have other stuff like create, alter. Okay.
Ah,
So
yeah, yeah. I'm recalling something. Yeah.
yeah. So they actually come under DDL. Okay. So let's actually, I mean, since Pooja isn't here yet, okay. So let's actually take a quick look at some database concepts. Okay. So exit clear. So like to, I'm like just to verify that your database is running.
Uh-huh.
Okay. You'll always do service MySQL status. Okay. So
Uh-huh.
this is like our bash command to verify that
Uh-huh.
MySQL is running. Once
Ah,
MySQL is running, there are two ways of uh, accessing MySQL. Okay, one
mhm,
obviously is via the command line.
mhm.
The second one would be via phpMyAdmin. Okay,
Yeah, okay.
so I guess to install phpMyAdmin, you have to do apt-get. So let's actually look for it. Apt cache search phpMyAdmin. Okay, so all you'll have to do is you'll have to do apt-get install -y phpMyAdmin. Okay, and that will install the phpMyAdmin graphical user interface tool. Okay, so it's
Uh,
a GUI tool. It's very helpful. Okay, now to access MySQL via command line, we'll do MySQL -u root -p. Okay, and then you'll give your password. Okay, so once
mhm.
you are in, if you want to take a look at all the available databases, you do show databases.
Database. Mhm.
Okay. So now once you know that you want to pick a database to work on, all you'll do
You
is
will
you'll just say,
use
yeah, use
you.
database name.
Mhm.
Okay. Now to take a look at all the tables that are in this database, you say show, uh,
Tables.
yeah, show tables. Right. Okay. So nice. Since there are no tables, let's actually drop this database for now. Okay,
Mhm.
and recreate the database. Okay. So to create a database, you'll say create database test.
Test.
Okay. So it'll be create database name.
Mhm.
Once you create the database, you'll say use test. Okay.
Mhm.
To create a table, we'll again use the same
Create
create,
table. Table name.
yeah,
Mhm.
create table test table one.
Table.
Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now since a table would have columns, we'll have
Uh-huh.
to give in the names and the data types of the columns. Okay. So let's assume that we want id as an integer and
Mhm.
then name as a string. So
Mhm.
strings we'll be using varchar. Okay.
Mhm.
So we can use both char
Mhm.
and varchar for
Mhm.
strings or for string
Okay.
data.
Mhm.
But varchar is actually preferred. The reason for
Mhm.
that is if we use char and we give a length. Okay. If we say so rather than varchar, if we say char 10, char 30 or char 10, irrespective of how long the data is, okay, 10 bytes of memory is taken.
It's
Okay.
uh,
But with
uh,
varchar, it is called variable character. Okay. So if you take 30, I mean if you say that this would be 30 characters, 30 characters is the
uh,
maximum. Okay. So
uh,
if the string that you given just as two characters, say like a state. Okay, if I just say tx, it would only take 2 bytes and not 30. Okay.
uh,
So now let's actually go in and hit enter. Now the table is created. Okay, if you want to take a look at all the tables that are available, you say show tables. Okay. If you want to understand what exactly is the schema of the table, you say describe. Okay, describe or DSC would give,
and I have a question.
yeah.
What is this difference between schema and database? All those things. It's sometimes confusing.
Okay, give me 1 second. I don't understand why I'm not able to describe this one. Okay, doesn't exist. So this is stable. Okay, so something isn't right. Because here,
DB.
say it again.
I think there's this. Use this.
Interesting.
It's DBL1.
Ah man, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
you would say ID and name. Yeah. So now, yeah. What was your question? I'm sorry.
Uh, I hear this term like schema and then database.
Right.
Or is sometimes it's confusing. What is schema actually?
Yeah. So let's
Is it
actually
the same as database? Uh-huh. Go
no,
ahead.
no, it's not. So let's actually go to Shrib. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So now, so let's say, okay, never mind. So now let's actually say that, okay, the whole
Mhm.
thing is a database. Okay.
Okay.
Let's actually say that this is a database. Okay. So in the database, what do we have? Our tables. Okay.
Mhm.
Indexes. Okay. Any kind of other functionality, say like functions. Okay. Privileges, stored procedures. Okay. Stored procedures
Mhm.
and so tables would obviously have the data,
Mhm.
data, and indexes also have the data. Okay, while functions privileges would have data, and I'll tell you what all of these mean.
Mm.
Stored procedures wouldn't have any data because it's just a functional concept, and then there are complex stuff, triggers and cursors and all that fun stuff. Okay, these are only functionality, so let's actually group them by activity. Okay, now the first question is, what exactly is a database? Okay, so a database is all this information. Okay,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. Now the schema. Okay,
Mm.
schema, I would define schema as set of rules for a database. Okay, a set of rules for a database, or for, okay, for a database. So I mean, most of us think that a schema would be a table definition. Okay, not necessarily. A schema can also define what are the keys. A schema can also define what is the functionality of each table. Okay, so schema can be a set of rules. So now let's actually take a look at a basic schema. Okay, and how does a schema define a database? Okay, now for our example, let's say that you are working with a students database, okay, or a student portal. Okay, in a student portal, what all tables can we have? We'll have students table, right? Then we'll have teachers table. Okay, then we'll have a relationship table to understand students and teachers, as in which student or like which teacher is responsible for which student, or how many students, or who are all the students that attend a certain class. Then we'll have, oh sorry, then we'll have a classes data table, and then we'll have all the teachers who teach a certain class. Okay, now the first thing that you notice here are five tables. Okay, but neither do I have data, okay, nor do I have a basic structure as to what exactly should be, or like what exactly should the, what kind of data should the table contain. Okay, so this is the first step in a schema, where schema would define all the tables that exist in a database. Okay, the second thing that schema would do is, what are all the columns in a table. Okay, so let's actually say schema defines what are all the tables in a database. First thing. The second thing would be, what are all the columns in a table. Okay, so let's take for example students. Okay, would be student id, name, age, and all that fun stuff that students have. Okay, so that's the second thing that a schema would define. The third thing that a schema would define is going to be the functionality part of it, and why exactly do we have all these tables. So the functionality here would be, what do we need the students table for. Okay, then what kind of activity would the students table perform. The third thing is going to be, what kind of uh, what kind of privileges, okay, would this table need. Okay, as in who gets to access this table. Okay, who can query this table. Okay, because see, when you're working on a real-time environment with a with thousands, not thousands, but with millions of hits. Okay, at that point if somebody comes in and does a select query, we'll be screwed, because the amount of memory that query might take is very high. Okay, so to avoid such kind of stupid functionality, okay, what we would do is we would actually use privileges, where we would say that only user 1, 2 and 3 have read access to this table, and only user 4 has the write access to this table. Thereby we are limiting any kind of uh, bad functionality, or I won't say bad functionality, but the correct way of putting it is any kind of stupidity that might happen, okay, by a human on a table or on a database will be controlling that via privileges. Okay, so these are the three things that a schema would define. Okay, once the schema is defined, database would obviously hold the physical data.
Hey,
Okay,
Sai.
so yeah, Pooja is here. How are you, Pooja?
No, actually, the go-to meeting has been kicking me out for the past 20 minutes.
Really?
Yeah, I did.
See
I
there.
sent you like 3 emails.
Oh, you did?
Hmm.
So I actually have Yahoo open. Yeah. Um, doesn't look like I got your emails though. Never mind. You're here, so that is the good thing. So now, yeah. So Nirajan, like, did you like? Do you understand the concept of, say, like, what is the difference between, say, like, schema and the database?
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah. So schema would be logical rules for a database. Okay, while the database in itself would contain data. Um, database holds the physical data. Okay, because data is stored on a disk, right? So it has to be physical data. Now, yeah. So first question, Pujat, like, do you have any questions from like the last few sessions?
I do have a lot of questions. This 1 week I've been doing some serious stuff. No, my first question starts from array. The one thing that I have not been able to do so far, uh, with nested arrays,
Right.
if I wanted to print everything out to the output,
Hmm.
uh, I tried for each loop, but
Okay.
it's giving me a constant screen of death. It's not giving me anything. It might be a silly error, but I don't know where I'm going wrong.
Okay. So do you want me
So,
to?
if do you remember the student's example that you gave us the other day in the mail?
Okay.
For You sent
So
it to us through email. Nested student array. I've been
oh,
trying to print that out.
okay. So let's
That's one thing I
actually,
couldn't do. So if any time in between, if you can do that, that'll be great.
yeah, yeah. Let's actually do it now. PHP exercise 2. This one.
Exactly. I extended that array and made it a little bigger and more nested, and I couldn't print the output.
Okay. So let's actually go over into this one. Okay. So let's say students nested.php, and let's paste it. Ooh, no. Okay. So let me actually note it down. So we have a students array. Okay.
Yeah.
So what this array does is it actually has data for two students. Student one array. Okay, so they have the name and the ID. So what are the other additions that you made?
I made it more nested, a little bit more nested, name, ID, and then I took another array for classes inside the second array.
Perfect. So let's actually do that then.
At this level also I couldn't print it out, so I don't know what function I'm using it wrong, so I don't know.
Okay. So then let's actually do this. Let's actually begin with this one, and then we'll actually make it a little complex. So this guy should come here. Name would be student 2. Array would be 1 or 2. Okay. So now, yeah, the first thing would be to loop over the original students variable. Okay, we'll say dollar students as just student. See, technically it's not a student ID. Let's just say key and say, let's say value, or let's say student. Okay, so now here the data that would actually come in here is one student at a time. Okay, so it's one student at a time. Okay, so when we actually begin with this guy students, okay, so the whole array comes in here, and then we are saying that take the first one, okay, which is this one, okay, and then pass it into this structure here. Okay, by that we are saying that take the key and pass it into this guy, and then take the value and then pass it into dollar student. Okay, so when we do that, if you want to access, say, uh, the ID value in there, all we'll do is we'll say that. Okay, and just to make it, I mean, make it look better, we'll also add the what is it, student name. Okay, and then since we wanted to print on a different line, we'll do line break. Okay, so what it would do is it would actually take this array variable. Okay, take this array, take the first item, pass it to key and student. Then since you are not using key, we can forget about it, but the student would be the first student array, okay, or the first student element. Inside this, the first element, which is an array, we are taking the ID, okay, which is like a named key, and then we are also taking the name, which is the named key for student name. Now let's actually go in here. Let's say www.training.com. I forgot the name. Okay, it says students nested dot php. Okay, so here what it did was it actually printed the student ID and student name with the for each loop.
What if I want to print it as is, like, name, then ID, key and value?
Um,
Do
so
I
for
take
that,
another for each?
yeah, since it's an array, so see what I would do is I would say if, okay, we'll use our isArray function, which say if
Hmm.
student is an array, okay, only then would we say that go into a for each. Okay, then we would say dollar student as dollar value. Okay, or we would say dollar key and value. And here since you already used key, I'll just say k. Okay, I would say what is it, echo dollar k dollar value. Okay, break. Okay, let's not let's actually put a break here. Then let's actually put another break outside this for loop, so that we understand that the student data is ended here. Student data ends here, which means that after this one there will be a new student. Okay, because there will be only one student at a time. Okay, so we are printing all the data for the student in here with the key and the value, and then we are exiting the student item, and before exiting the student item we are actually printing a message. So now let's actually, yeah, see again, I should probably have given an extra break here. This would actually make it look better. Okay, so the name is student1, the id is 101. Okay, and then we are saying that the student data ends here. Then again, oh, sorry, we are actually going into the second object, second variable, and we are printing the data for the second variable.
Okay, got where I went wrong.
Okay,
Thanks.
yeah, and just so that we are covered, I'll also add an internal array of classes, because we'll actually be using a very similar example for another concept called JSON. Okay, so let's actually visit the example here, so that yeah, I'm running out of battery, give me 1 minute. All right, so yeah, we'll actually be using a very similar structure for another concept called JSON in, say, like the next few days. So let's actually understand this example. Okay, so classes would be an array, and the classes are, say, business research methods, say finance, and then say international business. Okay, and then for this guy, classes array. Okay, so here classes say management, yeah, say human resources, uh, then the last one say account. Yep. Now here, what happens here is, okay, since, let's actually print it out and see what happens. This one, okay, since it's an internal array, I mean, since it's an array inside an array inside an array, we'll have to use another extra for each loop. Okay, but rather than using an extra for each loop, let's actually create an easy way of handling the data. Okay, okay, so here it says classes is an array. Okay, so I mean, mainly when you're working on, say, like an API. Okay, when you're working on an API, you cannot actually keep your fingers crossed and like read through all the data that is being sent over through the API. Okay, or API, or say like a feed. Okay, at that point what we'll do is we'll actually use the power of what is it, functional programming or modular programming, to actually divide same concepts into different instances. Okay, so what we would do here is we would say function uh, see, iterator is a keyword, so let's say iterate. Okay, let's call it custom iterator, and this guy would actually take an array. Okay, and all this would do is it would just print the no, would go through the array for each dollar array as dollar key and dollar value. Okay, and we would say if, okay, so keys, see again, keys would can never be an array, only a value will be an array. The simple reason for that being a key has to be unique. Okay, so is array, okay, all that will do is will actually call the same function. Did I say customer? Okay, that was wrong. Custom iterator. Okay, so thereby we are actually creating a self-referenced function. Okay, we should keep on, we should keep printing the data. Okay, I would say keep printing, I would just keep on going in there. Else, see, I mean, if it's not an array, okay, at that point we are all good to print the data, right? Dollar key, dollar value, because it's not an array, we can echo the data. And just to be on the safe side, since the for each loop starts here, let's actually echo a bunch of line breaks and say item end. Yeah, I guess that's enough. So here what will happen is, I don't think we would need so many in here. So let's actually do that. Yeah. Then and then we can actually avoid uh, this for each. Okay. Okay. Rather than saying that we would need what is it, a value or like a loop for every extra structure, all you would do is we would just call in the custom iterator function. Okay, and would actually pass in the students. Yeah, we'll pass in the students thing. Okay, since I did not close my single quote here, I was actually getting a, or I would have got an error, but since we have closed it out, we wouldn't get an error. So now what we'll do is, yeah, we're actually passing in the students array into the custom iterator function. Okay, let's actually print it out and see what happens. See, by doing this, see, I mean, I shouldn't have said item end. Okay, so I'll say value end, and here, since you're calling the iterator in here, you can say item end here. Okay, so let's actually print out the data, and then we'll actually go back and see what actually happened. Okay, so now this looks better. Okay, so what we are doing here is we actually have a what is it? We actually have um, a bunch of, so here the other interesting part is that the classes, okay, the classes are printed here. Okay, so student 2, id 2, and the classes are printed here, and I'm not sure why we actually have some extra junk data
Oh,
that's coming back.
that's because 3 times the item ends, right? Your custom iterator.
No, it's only in 2 times.
The number of classes are 3, right? So it checks for each class if it's. I understood
Right,
why
right,
it's
right,
printing
right.
though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, yep. Yeah. So I mean, we wouldn't anyways be using these echo messages, so we are good either ways. But yeah, the whole point of writing out the custom iterator is to avoid like 6 loops if you have 6 different nested objects. Okay, by coming up with say like a custom iterator that would actually solve our purpose. Okay, we can actually go in and print any kind of data. Okay, so the only thing that we are doing that is different from here is we are calling in the function by itself. Okay, so one thing to be like that we'll have to be careful with is if there are any conditionals, we'll have to be a little careful. If not, we might end up actually what is it, we might actually end up in an infinite loop. So that is one scary thing about calling your own function inside the same function. But other than that, this is a nice way of handling nested arrays. So that was one question. So Pooja, do you have any other questions?
This works wonderful. No, I think I completed all your exercises, so I'll go forward and do SQL right now after this.
Good. So
This was one question I was not able to get to. Yeah, this works very nicely.
yeah, yeah, Nirajan, we do. So I mean, arrays are what we use real time. I'll give you an example. I mean, now that you've asked, so if you actually go to a website called Reddit, okay, reddit.com, okay. So what Reddit does is it actually aggregates information from the internet. Okay, with Reddit, if you want to display your data, I mean display this data on the internet, okay, or on your website for that matter, you'll do this. Okay, so this is a JSON feed that's coming back. Okay, so now if you actually want to store this data locally, okay, in a temporary memory, at that point what you'll do is you'll actually convert this data into an array and you'll use that array. At the same time, if you actually are fetching data say from, say let's go to DB manipulations. Okay, if you're fetching data from a table like this one, okay, you can either do fetch object, okay, or you could even do um, fetch array. Okay, and that would actually bring the data back. I mean, long story short, to answer your question, do we really use arrays? Of course we do. I mean, they are the most important I mean, they're pretty much the most important part why people actually use PHP. Mainly the way we actually have arrays, we can actually they're not typed at all, right? Because as an example, so with at least with PHP, if we say dollar array is equal to array, okay, at that point I can say whatever. Okay, this is a string. I would say 101. I would say 101 dot get. Okay, and then I can also say uh, okay, yeah, I would also say new employee, okay, which is an object. Okay, I'm actually creating an employee object with ID of 101. Okay, so it can also hold an object. We can also hold an object inside an array, but this will not be possible say with something else, because objects are typed objects are typed by their class. Okay, so I mean that is one other reason why we would actually use arrays. Yeah.
What did I miss? Well, there seems to be a DB connection going on around this page.
uh, this one.
Mm-hmm.
This actually was an old one. I don't know. So I mean, yeah, let's actually run it and see what actually happens. So it looks like we are actually making a connection to the users table from online purchases database. SQL issue minus p admin. So we'll say use online purchases. Say show tables. Okay, so we are actually printing a list of all the users and their users information. Yep. So there'll be DB manipulations. So there'll be, oh, looks like this one's done long back. Yeah, we haven't built a table.
I'll
Okay,
have to listen to all the classes and see what I missed last
yeah,
1 week.
yeah. I mean, it's pretty simple. So all that we are doing is we are actually making a connection to the database. Okay, we're connecting to the database here. We're actually passing in the credentials, as in the server name, the username, and the password. Okay, and then using MySQL select DB, we are actually setting the select, or rather selecting the database, which is online purchases. Once we select the database, we are actually passing a query. Okay, so let's actually run that query. Say online purchases. Okay, if we say select star from users, okay, we actually get a list of all the information. Okay, once we pass the query into MySQL query, okay, what we would get is um, it's called a resource data type. Okay, I'm not sure if we have discussed about resource data type, but it's just another data type. Okay, say like int, double, uh, string, and all that, object, array. Okay, so a resource is another type of a data type, and then we actually are taking the resource, okay, which contains the output from MySQL, and we are actually passing it into a function called MySQL fetch object. Okay, now what MySQL fetch object does internally is uh, it actually loops through the result set that is coming back, and it actually passes one row to the uh, to this row variable at a time. Okay, and once we have one row at a time, we actually are going in and we are actually printing the first name, last name, and address. And if there is a question as to how would we do with an array, we'll do this way. Okay, all we'll have to do is we'll just have to change, since uh, since what is it, hyphen greater than is the arrow sign, and arrow sign is used for objects. We'll have to switch to this format to get the data from the array. Okay, so let's actually print the data and see if you're getting the data. Yeah, we still get the data, but just to be on the safe side, we'll say echo from array, just to make sure that it's not cached or anything. Yeah, it is from array. Okay, and the only big difference was that we actually are using fetch array, and we have actually modified the way we handle the data. Okay,
Sorry, Sai, but before the array, what did he use?
before array it was object.
Yeah. Okay.
So I mean, it again depends on what is it, what kind of uh, assumptions or what kind of architecture do you come with, right? I mean, assuming the like if it's like an object oriented environment that you are working with, at that point it is to keep the consistency of the project, it is always good to use MySQL fetch object. Okay, or I mean again it's not a big difference, but yeah, you can even do typecasting and all that fancy stuff. I'm not sure if you have done typecasting, but let me actually show you all. So let's actually close this. Let's clear it out. Let's go back in
So
here.
MySQL fetch array and MySQL fetch object are two predefined functions.
Yeah, there are actually
Okay.
a couple more. Let's actually probably take a look at those first. Get users. Okay, so the other one. Okay, so let's actually comment this out. Okay, so if we actually say var underscore dump, okay, MySQL fetch object of dollar result. Let's see what happens here. Okay, yeah, see var underscore dump is pretty awesome. Okay, so let's actually put in echo pre, so that they're wrapped in a pre HTML element tag, and it's a little more easy to take a look at. Okay, so like I've said, let me actually move from var. Okay, so the first thing is it is an object that is coming back. Okay, and there is only one row that is coming back. Originally there are two rows, but like I've said that the result variable that we have is a resource. Okay, it is not going to give us everything at a single go, or in a single go. What it does is we would have to iterate on the result object, okay, to fetch one row at a time. Okay, so when we do a var dump on the result object, all we get is one row only. Okay, now let's actually take a look at the second way of handling it. The second way was, or like the second way is MySQL fetch array, and I'll have to close it here. Okay, so at this point we'll actually see some redundancies in here. Yeah, so when I say redundancies, you can actually see that the data is actually coming back twice. Okay, once as an address, I mean with a key of address, and the other with a key of the column number. Okay, and the reason for that is the interpreter is kind of confused as to what kind of a methodology are you using, or like will you use at some point in the future to pick the, or like to extract the data. Are you going to go in a numerical order where you would say that since id is the first one, which would be number 0, and since last name is like the last one, okay, would you go by that order, or do you want to go by the column name? Okay, so it would actually provide you both. To avoid any kind of redundancies, we'll use the third method. Okay, the third method is associative. Okay, so this one is a little more close to what we would get with a fetch object. Okay, so let's actually, yeah, so now we have seen this, or like rather we have seen object, we have seen array. Now let's actually see associative. Okay, again this one is close to the object. Okay, but this time the data format that's coming back is an array. Okay, and in here the column names, since we have already mentioned that we are going to go the associative route, we actually get an associative array where the keys would be the column names and the values would be the, I mean the data from the table would be the values. Okay, now the last case is where you actually have a set of students. Say there are 100,000 students in your database. Okay, at that point, when we are loading a student profile, it doesn't make sense in loading all the profiles. Okay, it would only, or we should only load a profile where we would say that get users.php, we say user id is equal to 1. If we say user id is equal to 1, we shouldn't get all the data. Okay, even here we are actually seeing that the array has, the length of the array is 4. It is not this length, it is the length of the, or like the number of records that are coming back. Okay, so if we only want this item, what will we do? The way we can handle it is, okay, where we are saying we only want one row, we can say MySQL fetch row, okay, which would actually give us the first item. And here we can actually say, since we are only planning on getting one row, we'll say limit 1. Okay, and we would say fetch me only one row. Okay, let's see what happens here. Okay, at that point, again, this is not going to be associative. Okay, so that is one, that is kind of a drawback. So the way people use it is by just saying, let's actually see. Yeah, the way people use it is address. Yeah, okay, so we are only going to get the address, or people might even say where first name. Okay, because we only want some data. So at that point, we would only get this data, and we would actually print it onto the table, not table, but onto the screen. Say this is the kind of request that they would make for, say, like a login section where they want to say hello John, or like you're logged in John, or something of a generic message. Okay, at that point we can use what is it, MySQL fetch row, just to get one element. So yeah, these are the 4 ways of fetching data from the database. Do you all have any questions with this one? No. Perfect.
I'm good.
Okay, so yeah, we have like 2 minutes left for today's session. So yeah, I mean, one thing that I can tell you all is we have had a long break for different people at different times. Okay, so I'm not sure if you all are on the same what is it, wavelength. So I'm going to expect different questions from different people. So don't worry. The concept, or like the main point here, is to understand the web development part. So make sure that any questions that you all have, go ahead and ask them. And yeah, if there are any questions tomorrow, we can actually tackle those questions. If not, we can actually go forward, move forward. Okay, but again, make sure that you all practice the object oriented part, the MySQL part, mainly the connections, and even stored procedures. Stored procedures are like the minimum that you'll have to understand, uh, because they are compiled and they are fast. So it's they're the, like the minimum. When is the next class? Yeah, so Nirajan, there was a small change. So originally the class would have been on Thursday, but the class is now shifted to Wednesday. So the classes now would be on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Saturday and Sunday. Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, the next class is tomorrow at 8 p.m. Yep. So yeah, I mean, if you all have no more questions, we can call it a
Thanks,
day.
I
Yep. See you all tomorrow.
tomorrow. Bye.